Hey, y'all. Welcome to the Common Good Podcast. I'm Doug Pagitt here with Robb Ryerse. Boy, we're excited about things today. Talk about the Pope.
Yeah.
Big deal for a couple of Protestant boys to have some Catholic leaders on with us, you know?
For sure. For sure. And I mean, I think the big breaking news, Doug, is that Donald Trump was not named Pope.
Was not named the Pope. No, and that just makes me flash back to maybe Donald Trump wouldn't have been named the President of the United States, which would have just been great. It happened to me again the other day, Rob. I was throwing away some garbage in our kitchen, just throwing some stuff away. And I just stopped and said to myself, how in God's name is Donald Trump the President of the United States?
Seriously. I have those moments.
One of the only days I didn't think about that was the day they announced the new Pope. Really. I mean, like I was like, okay. And then found out that he's someone that I feel like, first of all, let me just say, congratulations.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mr. Provost.
Yeah.
Great Pope name too. Seriously, right? Like the way it looks, like Pope Leo and then the X1V. Oh, that is just, that's some branding.
It's an I, not a one, but okay.
It's an I, not a one. Thank you.
Doug, and you and I are both 2 degrees of separation from the Pope. Have you ever been 2 degrees of separation from the Pope, Doug?
Mary,
you and I,
Jesus, and then the Pope. Yes, I feel.
No, in the Kevin 6 degrees of separation game. I can now get to the Pope by.
I guess. If you're talking about Jack Caputo, because that's what I'm thinking about.
I am talking about Jack Caputo. I'm talking about, who else should I be talking about? I don't know if I have other connections to the Pope.
Yeah.
I know and have had breakfast with one of the Pope's professors.
Yeah. Who, by the way, did you see, he wrote about this on Facebook, not you having breakfast with him, of course, but he wrote about himself having been one of his instructors, Jack Caputo being one of, before he, when he was just, what was his first name before he was Pope?
Bob.
Bob. There's a voice of Mother Mary in here.
The voice.
That's Denise. You all are going to get to meet Denise here in a minute. Why don't we just bring him on now? This is Denise.
Yeah, we'll stop with our
Denise McGraw. Denise is the co-chair of the Catholics Vote Common Good effort, and Miguel Diaz, one of the ambassadors to the Holy See. Retired. Good to have you two here. Rob and I are just a couple of Protestants thrilled about the Pope, which doesn't always happen. It hasn't always been a thing in the United States. So we're thrilled, Denise and Miguel, to talk with you about what you know, because we are so excited because we have a friend who we've worked with in some of this world. I think it was one of Robb's instructors named Jack Caputo. And Jack posted on Facebook, it was really an honor. I knew he was a bright student or something like this. The greatest humble brag
I hope
ever.
He remembers what I taught him.
Oh, my goodness. Because Miguel Diaz, unlike you, people like us don't, we don't find ourselves being close to the Pope at all. But you, on the other hand, have been ambassador to the Holy See. So we're going to get into that. And why don't we just start right there? What is an ambassador to the Holy See, and why is there one? And when was that you?
Oh my gosh, that is a great question.
Thank you.
But it's one worth pursuing because I think that as a whole, we Americans don't really know that we've really had diplomatic relations with the Holy See for now over, I guess, 30 years. They were established under President Reagan. And first of all, let's be clear about what the Holy See means.
Yeah.
Many times I have to slightly correct persons, and I myself can make the mistake of saying, "Oh, I was the U.S. ambassador to the Vatican." It's not really the Vatican; it's the Holy See, because the Holy See is really the universal governance, right? The government of the Catholic Church that operates from Vatican City, Vatican City State. And, this is a sovereign independent territory, right, of 0.17. I mean, if you've been there, square miles, right?
Right.
in the
It's
term
like a
Holy See,
big
really,
shopping mall in the United
right?
States. Yeah.
But it's surrounded right by Italy, right? So the term Holy See really refers to the to the composite of authority that jurisdiction and
Mm.
sovereignty that the Pope and the Roman Curia have over this internationally, worldwide recognized, entity.
Hmm.
And so, really, we have been, we, sending ambassadors and receiving ambassadors
Hmm.
officially. So the
Really?
nuncio is the ambassador of the Pope who resides in Washington D.C. Um, that title is a more modern way of describing what it's really ancient. And so before
Huh.
nations were having diplomatic relations, the Vatican was already and the Pope, tracing back all the way to really
Yeah.
the fourth, fifth centuries, sending envoys right to the various, in terms of the Roman Empire, um, Roman Holy Empire. They were sending envoys to the different countries. Well, they weren't countries at that point, but
Sure.
they're
Right. There was no
you know,
nation states. Yeah.
right. And so, so really, it's an incredibly important um, post worldwide, because as we who were part of the Holy Seas have been part of this ambassadorship, been privileged to be part of, being an ambassador to this post. The Holy Seas has ears and eyes everywhere. And then on the other
Well,
side,
okay. There's the rumors a lot of us in the Protestant world have been
well,
worried about. But
but I mean, it could. Okay, so yes, it could lead to all kinds of conspiracy
yeah.
theories, and
Right.
but on the positive side, imagine that when conflict breaks out anywhere
Hmm.
in the world, that we have nuns, religious orders, men and women. We have educational institutions. We have Caritas Internationalis. We have this network that's already in place across the globe that can really provide much needed assistance and
Mm.
information regarding how to
Wow.
how to pair up countries to help out at time of war, but also in times of peace, in terms of other collaborations. And so there's really there's all ambassadors to the Holy See have been traditionally known to work on issues like promoting rights, fighting trafficking in persons, addressing world conflicts, addressing environmental crises, earthquakes,
Mm. Mm.
tsunamis, in terms of being able to combating diseases, worldwide diseases. So partnering up with the Vatican in terms of its network to really, to imagine the United States and the Vatican whenever we can fruitfully and
Mm.
collaboratively work on behalf of the human family.
Interesting.
The Pope is both the head of the Roman Catholics, right? The Roman Catholic Church, but he's also has this other dimension, right? Which is has this the maxim the Pontifex Maximus,
Yeah.
we can call him a bridge builder when it comes to bringing nations together, peoples together. And so now we go fast forward to the present moment and think about the Pope being this kind of bridge builder in the Americas, because he
Mm.
has both citizenship in the United States and in Peru. And so the second Pope from the Americas, the first from the United States, with this immersion in Peru and the preferential option for the poor
Hmm.
that continues Pope Francis's vision, uh, and also provides, in my judgment and in the judgment of others, as we've seen commented in the last few days, provides a powerful symbol. I like to say that we've gone from an America first to an America cares
Mm.
symbol into an
I like it.
American, because the Pope is a servant of servants.
Mm.
The best of popes try to do, try to act out, try to speak and do what Jesus himself would have spoken and done, especially on behalf of the marginalized, the poor, and those that have been silenced among us. And
Mm.
so, wow, yeah, it is the first, but what a first at this time in history when we have so much narcissism and so much attention to ourselves. So I'll leave it like that. I'll leave it at that. But we can
Yeah.
continue a conversation over this. But the one last thing I say is that I did have dinner with now Pope Leo last
Ah.
Yeah, it was actually well, I keep saying it's the fall because it felt fall like in
Okay.
Chicago, but it was really towards the end of the summer. It was actually during the Democratic National Convention, and it was a cool week here in Chicago.
Yeah.
And so four of us had dinner with him in the outskirts of Chicago, where closer to where his family's from, because of this project that four of us have been involved with Pope Francis and Dr. Mise Kuda, who's one of the highest ranking members of the Roman Curia. And surely, because of her connections to Pope Francis and Pope Leo,
Interesting.
this project is now likely to continue. So I am thrilled. I mean, I'm thrilled from that perspective because it's a project that engages world youth. And Pope Leo, well, previously, Cardinal Prevost had strongly endorsed that project because he was the president of the Pontifical Commission, for Latin America, and Denise is the secretary for the Pontifical Commission for Latin America. So there's a picture that I have with him that is being tweeted around the country, etc. But what is really fascinating is that before he was elected, I was tweeting that picture and saying, or I was sending that picture around and saying, what if this cardinal gets elected?
What if it's
So
Yeah, so Doug,
I had some kind of inner whatever. And the news has asked me. Literally, I had an interview a month, the morning of and people were saying to me, "What did the morning before the election?" And it's like, did you have some insiders, into the country? I promise I did not. This was totally something that just happens. That I met with him last year. So.
Did you put
Yeah, so
100 to
now we
1
have,
down on Robert though? Did you lay a bet after that? Did you just go to
Oh my gosh,
Vegas and lay a small bet?
Right? I didn't. I should have, right?
Yeah.
So
now
it was honestly just a personal. It was on
Love
a
it.
personal level.
yeah.
And I just thought, okay, well, it'd be great. But honestly, the part that made it great for me was the part that because he had known our work, and he was so close to Pope Francis, and that's one of the reasons why he was. I have no doubt that he was in some ways. Francis was one of, if not the Francis's personal choice to succeed him, because of so much of the alignment. We can talk more about the name and all that, I'm sure, and what that means. But undoubtedly, I said, well, given all the names that are out there, it's, I think this would be someone that would be worth, raising after Francis. The question of raising two Americans in the American continental sense of the term, and one from the United States was a really, doubtful thing. But I said, why not? Why not? Anything's possible. So,
It's wonderful.
Well, I mean, we were talking about our degrees of Kevin Bacon away from the Pope, and Doug, now we've got two paths to the Pope.
Totally.
Through Miguel. So Miguel, you mentioned that it's such a critical pick at this time in history, and I'm curious. I want to talk about that a little bit. Obviously anytime that there's a new leader for the church, that's a very significant moment. The fact, I mean, the reaction from everybody, whether Catholic or not, the first immediate reaction was, this is an American Pope, and which is, obviously the first time that's ever happened. I've got kind of two things on this. One is, at this time in history, having an American Pope, I don't know, doesn't this feel like the kind of, does America really have the moral fortitude to are we really in a position to be leading the moral world right now? It just seems like an odd time given the American reputation around the world because of our political leadership. So I'm curious about that, how this kind of counterbalances or interacts with the impression that people around the world have of the United States because of President Trump. And at the same time, just more broadly, how significant is it to have a Pope from the United States? It feels weird. It feels like that's a position for other countries, not someone who could have eaten at Chick-fil-A, like that. You don't think of the Pope that way. And so, I'm curious, how you might think through those things.
Yeah, I mean, and I think, let me go back to the question of America. So for those of us that are, wearing the diplomatic hat as an ambassador, it's one thing for me, and the other hat is the hat of a theologian. Just like I don't like the term church to be reduced to confine to clerical, in a clerical
Mm.
sense, right? Understood in a clerical sense. Oh, it's just the bishops and the priest. No, the church is the people of God. I like to, to make a move there and say, well, America is not the president. And I like to still believe that there are enough of us that are part of this amazing mosaic of peoples, right? When I was an ambassador, I used to say that I don't like the melting pot analogy of America because it has that kind of power that someone's melting away differences
Mm.
in a pot. And I jokingly said in Barcelona, in one of these international conferences, that I like the paella. America is like a paella
Mm-hmm.
because of the different ingredients that are necessary to preserve that wonderful sort of that oneness in diversity. It's not about sameness; it's about unity, and unity, you know, demands diversity. As an aside, I think that Pope Francis was a equity, diversity, and inclusion type of pope because of the ways that he nominated all these cardinals from peripheries, right? And 20 of them coming from places that had never before had a cardinal. So back into your point about America and an American pope, um, we are a superpower, with or without, you know, regardless of who's in the White House, whether it's Trump or anybody else. And that's not going away. It is true that that reputation that we had, that some of us believe, needs to be built upon in terms of a more compassionate, caregiving country, may no longer be the kind of image that is being projected worldwide. Um, but nonetheless, we're still a superpower. Um, and we have tremendous abilities in terms of our economic resources, in terms of our, intellectual, cultural heritage, in terms of our diversity in the country, from different peoples, different immigrant communities, to continue to contribute to what I think the world needs at this point, which is not. I mean, Pope Francis spoke of the globalization of human indifference, and couldn't have been more on target with that message, right? This is still with us, and what we need is the antidote to this kind of America First mentality. And that's why I think that Pope Leo offers this kind of America Cares vision, which taps, I hope, and I don't think it's just a hope, I think it really is a reality. It taps into, so many of us, into so many of our neighbors who are tired, just exhausted, um, with the polarization, with the demeaning of ordinary human beings, um, whether it's on the basis of migration status, gender identity, sexual orientation, race, etc. We're just tired, and I think that hopefully, just even that symbol. I mean, I know, even having this symbol of American symbol of compassion, charity, etc., already, invites us to think that we could be different, we can be different, we are different, and moving forward, we can set a different image for who we are as a people. So, I mean, those are
Love it.
my first thoughts there. But
Love it. Thank you. Thank you so much. Hey, Denise, Catholicism for a lot of people is represented by its ecclesial structure and even by its, a nation state sort of structure. But the predominant life of Catholicism in the United States is not the clergy. It's not the structure. It's the millions of people around this country, the millions of people, billion people around the world. It's really a lay movement. Even though, there's so much power given to the ecclesial structure, the real power lies in all the people. And that's where someone like you comes in, that you're a part of the Catholic world, but you're a lay leader, both with, Catholics Vote Common Good and and also your own life, the basketball teams you root for, where your kids go to college, the identity that you carry. Like for you, a Catholic person in this world, what does the election of a pope mean to you, and what does the election of this pope say and mean to you?
Well, I think the whole process has been, it's fascinating. It's a reminder of everything that we grew up knowing, but to see it in action again, from the pomp and the circumstance of a papal funeral to the calling of the conclave, and watching it all play out, to last Thursday with the announcement of the new pope. It's a very unifying time. It's a very it's a joyous, it's uplifting time, while we still are completely and utterly mourning, our great leader, Pope Francis. And as I always say, Catholics Vote Common Good were started as Pope Francis Catholics, people who were committed to the common good, which to many of us grew up calling it, Catholic social justice teaching. So I think this is really a time for people to look inward, to see how they could be more involved, to see that perhaps this is a church that, the larger sense of church, the way the ambassador said, is more about people like us. And somebody much smarter than me said recently that this is a solidification of Francis's legacy. Not turning away. That was my greatest fear.
Yeah.
And I know, Doug, you and I had gone back and forth about it. You had asked me, my greatest fear is that we would get a reaction to Francis.
Yeah.
We would get a reaction to his openness of all people, of his, determination to protect the environment, of all of those issues that in American terms are more left-leaning or more liberal. And I was fearful that we would get somebody who was just 180 degrees from that. But instead, we got his deputy. Instead, we got that person who had learned at the feet of the master, who had been there helping him to determine these policies and the papal papers that he was putting out. It's an amazing time. It's surprising, but I hope, I'm going to end this by saying the same way as I hope it becomes a unifying factor. I hope more people say, I'm Catholic. I grew up Catholic. I haven't been to church in 20 years. But, if this is what the Catholic Church is like, this guy, I'm a little more interested in that. There's something there for me. And that's always what we had hoped with Catholics Vote Common Good.
Yeah. So obviously, Catholicism is a large religion. There's a lot of Catholics. There's a wide range. Over in the Protestant world, we like our denominations. You all don't do separate denominations, but you do orders. And it's something that for a lot of people feels like their particular expression of Christianity. Leo XIV is in part of the Augustinian order. So I'm wondering if you could say something about that. And also for either of you, Miguel, maybe you first, what's been the reaction of the more conservative, socially conservative, religiously conservative, politically conservative Catholics that we know well in this country, but also around the world? Catholicism in the United States in some topics is far more inclusive, progressive, whatever sort of political, social terms we want to use, than some other places in the world. And I know that's been a big issue for making Catholic change at a papal level, whether that includes how women are involved or what the responses to sexual abuse by clergy and the others, that these issues land differently in different parts of the world. So it really is a global religion that has to think about its expression everywhere. So how is it being met by people in other places? And is there something about having an Augustinian now as a pope, other than, I guess, Villanova is just fired up and, ready to recruit some students? So Miguel, do you want to go first on
Wait, so Doug, how long do we have? Do we have like about,
well, 2-3 hours? Yeah.
Well, some of us are facing down how long do I have every day.
Should I pull out the writings of St. Augustine and then begin a process of discussion of what we should be talking about? No, So the first thing I'd like to say is that, and this is no minor detail, that he did study at Catholic Theological Union and received most of his theological and ministerial training at CTU. Now, why do I say that? Because CTU is not just here in Chicago, but it is also a community of scholars, mostly from religious communities, that is very diverse. And so you had some of the, CTU has had some of the leading feminist women Catholic biblical scholars, for instance, teaching and mentoring a generation of Catholics for a very long time. And so I think that is no minor detail. Why do I say that? Is because then Cardinal Prevost, um, as a religious, as an Augustinian, was studying with other religious communities, men and women, and they were, this is a place that that was wrestling with some of these issues that today have become much more common, issues much more common raised in classrooms at universities, seminaries, etc., dealing with all kinds of race, gender, sexuality, etc. He was in that institution that was doing that. So I think that's important. Now, to the question of Augustine vis-a-vis, so the Augustinian vis-a-vis the Jesuit. So, Ignatius of Loyola was, as we know, the big, the big spiritual parent, the big spiritual influence on Pope Francis, especially the mysticism of, of that everyday life that seeks to find, God in all persons and things, and in concrete realities. That was very much part of Francis's spirituality. Right now we have an Augustinian, and I also think about St. Augustine of Hippo in his classic work that on the Trinity, speaks about the vestiges of God that are scattered throughout the world. Augustine of Hippo is the great contributor of Western theology, which there's a bridge there to the Protestant because it was Luther was an Augustinian, Martin Luther was an Augustinian, and so there is a lot there that now there's a bridge building also possible between Catholics and Protestants, given the origins of Protestantism, right? And one of my favorite...
Miguel, let me just suggest something here for people that don't maybe know the history. If you come from a Protestant world and you hear that a tradition of Christianity is rooted in Augustine, that tends to mean much more conservative expressions in the Protestant world. People really freak out about how Augustine has been used by Protestant theologians, and the parts of Augustine's massive work that have been selected out. And but over on the Catholic side, that's not what it means to be an Augustinian. It's community building and inclusion and women, and those exact same teachings of Augustine have been used by conservatives to keep women out and keep women down and all the rest. So this is one of the places where not only is there a crossover, it really shows the diversity in Christianity and how.
And I'm not saying that Augustine has not been used in a similar way in Roman Catholicism. So because I don't want to. In fact, there are Augustinian interpretations with the Roman Catholic tradition that follow in the same line that you were saying. But Augustine, like you said, has a huge corpus, and for instance, this notion of grace as healing. So imagine a pope, tapping into that grace is a healing force for a very broken world. Just, or Augustine's notions of, in the Doctrina Cristiana, of, it's not just what we say in life. That's Augustine's great rhetoric. He was, in terms of his conversation and the influence that Ambrose of Milan had on him. It's not just what we say in the world, but how we say it. So that the notion of context is important in terms of how we express. All about communication, right? I'm just giving you there two, teasing your,
totally
here in the imagination, and seeing the potential, the city of God. Let us build. We have this song in. Let us build the city of God, and let us turn our darkness into light. A lot of these things that are already out there are, things that the ways that the Augustinian tradition has filtered and has impacted ways of being and thinking in the world. And so from that perspective, and I agree with you 100%, any theologian or any gospel or anything in the scriptures can be, can be maligned, misused, weaponized. But from the perspective that I'm speaking, there's a tremendous richness to be able to tap into the Augustinian tradition and what that Augustinian tradition and spirituality can contribute to the new hope.
Denise, any thoughts on how the conservatives are responding to, in my Facebook
That's a
feed
great
and social
question.
feed, I just see all
get it.
people fired up. But I'm sure, the J.D. Vance crowd and the Steve Bannon crowd and the Michael Flynn crowd are freaking out.
I think they are. I think they are. It's a great question, Doug. I mean, this is a world that you watch closely and you live in. Whatever we do on the common good side usually has an equal and opposite reaction. And, this is a group who have spent a lot of time now just saying that we should pray for this new pope. There's not been the shouting from the rooftops and the joy, the pure joy that we're seeing in,
Interesting.
extracting the right and part of the church from the rest of the church and from the rest of just regular Catholics, as you've referred to a few times in this, the people who fill the pews each week. The ambassador said folks are exhausted. They're exhausted about all this polarization. And I do believe that they see this as an opportunity that they maybe didn't get in the election and they haven't gotten in other places to really bring people, one, back together, and two, back to the church. And, I think there are a lot of regular Catholics in this country who are just not interested in that version of Catholicism, that exclusive, demeaning, demonizing version of this Catholic Church. And they want to be more open to people, and they get to those basics of loving thy neighbor that we've talked so much about, and ensuring that we as people can help those who need it the most and the least among us, and all these things that we were raised believing, and not only believing but being taught how to act on, is sort of lost on that other side. And I think they're struggling with how to react to it. And you see that with the statements that the American cardinals made after this. Oh, it wasn't political, and oh, it wasn't. But they made a decision to choose somebody who they knew what they were getting. They knew him better than anybody. If any group of people knew who this was, it was them. And they chose him, and they chose him for a reason. And this is, by and large, a lot of these same people either chose Francis or were appointed by Francis. So they certainly knew him quite well. And I think there's a decision there to keep us on this track, which is trying to lift up all voices and all lives.
And it's interesting, Denise, just to follow up, that Pope Leo XIV clarified his name, because there were all kinds of efforts trying to relate the name Leo to other popes, and he made it very clear: no, I chose this name in continuity with the Leo that starts this kind of contemporary Roman Catholic social teaching tradition.
Exactly.
And I intend to, and then he went further and said, I intend to address issues that could be characterized as the new kind of like revolution, particularly related to, to artificial intelligence and other issues that the human family faces today. So he made, he was very clear that he is standing in line with, Roman Catholic social teaching, and that's why he chose the name.
Hey, Miguel, when somebody's, inconsiderately, when you're having lunch or breakfast or whatever with Robert Provost, and he knows his role, and he knows Prevost, thank you, and he knows his, some point Francis will die. First of all, do people in those roles ever think about this stuff like this? Do they have in their mind, like, if I became Pope, my name would be, was he thinking that ahead of time?
Yeah, we talked about that all the time. We talked about it during the dinner conversation. No, of course. Well, I imagine that they probably do, especially if they're papabilis, right? They're thinking ahead. I cannot imagine that they go into the conclave, especially if they're thinking that there is even a remote possibility, without having thought carefully, right, about given some thought and prayer to the name that they would take. So yeah, Doug, I think that because what's in a name, this isn't just a name. Names have tremendous, as we are discussing, symbolic power, right? And so it's not like at the last minute, oh, let me see out of the names which one I'm going to choose here. Just like with Francis, he clearly, Francis's name was could not have been more revelatory of the kind of vision that he left us, right? And that he wanted for the church, including the Laudato Si, and tied to the great Saint Francis of Assisi and his care for the environment and his care for all creatures. And so, and I think that's where the continuity is with Pope Leo the 14th, is that he has said, okay, well, maybe his major focus is not going to be the environment, although that's gonna be one of them. I cannot see him abandoning that in any which way, shape, or form. But clearly he said, okay, well, I'm going to send a clear signal here, and explain my name and why I chose it. And it is, it is in line with what we Catholics like to say, the best kept secret. So, Roman Catholic social teaching is the best kept secret. Why is that? Because I think Catholics have been so, there's a large percentage of Catholics that think that Catholic social teaching is something that is, well, you can be Christian and Catholic and then think about Catholic social teaching. But in fact, Catholic social teaching is not an ancillary. It is essential to what it means to be and to act out and to embody and incarnate our Christian identity. When I was hungry and you gave me to eat, when I was thirsty and you gave me to drink, when I was in prison and you visited me, when I was a stranger and you welcomed me. When, Lord, did we do this? The disciples answered. Whenever you did it to the least of my brothers and sisters, you did it unto me. To me, the love of God and neighbor, and that, and in Matthew, the great judgment scene in Matthew 25 are the great, synthesizers
Right.
of Catholic social teaching. And now we have a pope whose name, is related to that core Christian Catholic teaching.
In my social media stream, I put up stuff about being very excited about the Pope and got two kinds of other replies. One was Pope Francis didn't do enough structurally about things that he talked about thematically. And the second was, when will a pope take seriously priest abuse globally? And it's shown up in our chat here. It comes up all of the time, and because these are crucial issues. I think some people were talking about inclusion of LGBTQ people in the priesthood, maybe expanding for women, maybe some other things. But then the clergy abuse has been something that has obviously, for a long time, and in the United States, become a very powerful issue for a lot of people. What do you think Pope Leo will do in regards to those things? And do you have a sense of his approach of using the papacy around those issues?
Denise, you want to? Because I'll just say that because he comes from the United States and we've had a zero tolerance, we've tended to have that, and he has grown up in this context. I don't know what he will do because I can't, none of us knows that. What I hope that he will do is that he will take this on, as straightforward, as head on as possible, and that the zero tolerance when it comes to this issue will be strictly enforced. That's what I hope that he will do. And as an American, he knows that, it's like in life, nothing that we keep postponing gets healed, gets really healed, gets really addressed. And so I think it's time once and for all to just, really take this on, and wherever it has not been addressed, address it. The fact that he comes from the United States may be a help, but Denise may have a better insight or, prediction into this.
I think we all know, look, a lot of work needs to be done here. It's come light years ahead in the last 20 years, say 15 years. But there's a lot that needs to be done. I say that as a Catholic woman, right? I mean, I grew up in a world, and many people did, or even culturally, you watch it, you know, women are the backbone of this church. That, every school principal, every hospital administrator,
Right.
right? You know, right, college professors, present company excluded. We've made such headway in every other aspect of the church except for the true leadership. So there is a lot of work that needs to be done here, and clearly that the sex abuse scandal has turned away so many people of our age, they want no part of this. My husband is, it's hard for him to go with me every Sunday, and he grew up and went to in Catholic school and went to Catholic college, but it's just it's turned off a lot of people, and we do need to continue to focus on this issue and to correct it, and to put in place systems that can repel it and can cure it. So I don't think that anyone in any stretch of the imagination believes that everything is going to be solved now. There is a lot of work on this man's very, very large plate, um, in their global issues, and we are very focused on how will he get along with JD Vance and da, da, da. But
Right.
there's just so much globally there.
Right.
I last night on the news, a reporter, he did the large session with about 1,000 reporters yesterday, which was remarkable to itself. And and telling them that they do important work and he will never undermine it, and all of these
Wow.
things, which that alone is remarkable. It's different, it's something else. But he was asked, when is he coming to America, and he said, not now. It tells us a lot right there, right?
Yeah.
We have to read into so much of what all of this is, but he's not running to get here. He's
And
got a lot of things to do.
his first comments, I think he used 3 languages, and one of them was not English. Was
Latin, Italian,
that
Spanish? Yeah.
yeah? Was that a thing? Like, was that?
Oh, of course, absolutely. Because the Latin, the universal language of the church; Italian, the language of the Bishop of Rome, and then he chose the language from Peru, the Spanish, the continent that he's also part of, and where he spent his years of service to the poor, to the marginalized, etc. Yeah, that was very powerful. That was very powerful because, again, I mean, people like myself and others, and I'm sure everyone on this podcast would agree, it's so difficult. I mean, I always think that I have to constantly be code switching, because somehow or other part of who I am as a human being that involves these different parts have to be hidden or shamed, because somehow or other if I switch now from English y empiezo a hablar español, or io comincio a parlare la lingua italiana, or je commence à parler la langue française. I mean, these are gifts that I see, that 5 languages, right? Like the Pope, right? I see these as gifts, but many times I have to suppress them. Why do I have to do that? Because all of a sudden people around me may think that I'm saying something about them, or that I'm less American if I don't speak English. And it's like, this is insane. When I travel to Europe, these people speak different languages. They switch to different languages.
Yes, right.
And it's not a big deal. It's okay. It bridges. It brings our heart and our minds closer to another human being from their perspective. It doesn't have to be English all the time, And I think that's something that is powerful, that he could, better than any other pope, speak English, or at least in recent history, right? Speak English, but he didn't.
Yeah.
That's a powerful message.
Yeah.
That was a powerful message that was sent. So
Yeah. Did he speak English in that press conference yesterday?
he probably did. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does he have a real Chicago accent? I haven't heard him. Is he real Chicago?
Sort of, yeah. I mean, that's really cool.
I am the Pope. Yeah.
Rob, anything else for these 2 fine?
No, it's just been it's just been really fantastic.
What a pleasure. Thank you both
Yeah,
very much for having us.
Yeah, hearing that sense of optimism that you both have has been really encouraging.
Hey, and Miguel, I have one more question for you that I think you'd have some insight into if you have another minute here.
Of course.
It's kind of two-parter of the same notion. What does the Pope do all day? Like how does the day go? And what does a Pope not do that people would think the Pope does?
Oh my gosh, Doug. Well, Doug, this is a really super. This is like the most difficult question I've ever been asked. When I was in Rome with Pope Benedict, I did not spend my entire day with Pope Benedict trying to trace,
Yeah.
trace the every detail. Nor did I have access to his daily schedule. But I do know from the Pope does. It's a busy schedule, and it's a schedule that is quite tiring because Pope is not only addressing, internal issues related to the church, as Denise said, on a global, with respect to different issues that emerge globally. The Pope is not only engaging in appointments of bishops, different committees and work at the Vatican, outside the Vatican. The Pope is not only doing all those kinds of internal dimensions that he's a bishop of Rome. So the Pope is not only dealing with the issues related to Rome, all of those being church, but then there are all of these, as this head of a, the sovereign entity, and worldwide scope, the Pope is also dealing with international events that are political, that are, issues of natural catastrophe, and so meeting with world leaders that come to Rome on a weekly basis, right? And also receiving ambassadors, because when an ambassador is named and then accredited, each ambassador meets with the Pope to present the credentials. So I met with Pope Benedict and presented the credentials on behalf of the President Obama in the United States. But this is what happens, right? So there are all of these formal meetings, and then there are regular meetings that occur like on an international day of X, and then the Pope delivers some messages, right? And so there are all kinds. It's a super, super busy schedule. In terms of what the Pope is not doing, I don't know.
So does the Pope play golf 2 times a week, 3 times a week?
I don't think he does. No, and in fact,
interesting.
Yeah, well,
He's busy.
Francis was interesting because Francis, would, the private, that kind of privacy, or okay, I like to do this for fun. I think that when you're at that kind of responsibility, I honestly, I wonder, how does obviously he prays, he leads liturgy daily, etc. But it becomes a really gruesome and heavy schedule, and I think that's why I agree with Denise. We have to pray for him, or for anyone who occupies any position, of that kind of leadership, because it really is a lot of weight that person carries on behalf of the role and in service to our fellow humans.
Totally.
Okay, I have a question. Can I ask a quick question to Miguel?
Of course.
Okay, very quick.
This is not part of the podcast.
So I know exactly, but Ambassador, you were an ambassador to the Holy See during a far more conservative Pope.
Yeah.
And you were more left-leaning, representing a left-leaning president.
Yes.
We now have a very right-leaning ambassador to the Holy See.
And who is that?
Very much so. Excuse me?
Who is that? Who's the ambassador?
He is the former executive director of Catholic Vote.
Oh.
So, to a more left-leaning Pope. Is there a rub? Does that matter?
Yes, and no. In the sense, well, it depends upon how. This is how it matters. Of course, there is, with any ambassador representing any nation, whether it's at the Holy See, whether it's at the Vatican or in any other nation throughout the world, what you have is the ambassador represents that nation. And let me say this very clearly with respect to the foreign policy of his, her, their country, right? The ambassador is not there to represent, ambassadors are not there to represent their country with respect to church issues. Okay. I was not even, I mean, in my case, I was a theologian, but once I arrived in Rome, that theological hat, although it served me well, very, very well in terms of diplomacy at the Vatican, it was not really to be worn explicitly in any way, because that was not why I was there. I was there to represent the foreign policy of the United States of America as articulated by the Secretary Clinton and President Obama. So to Denise's question, it does matter, but I think it's going to matter more how that ambassador, right? And so how the ambassador engages the Vatican, right? Because the Vatican is not likely to change its views with respect to its foreign policy, with respect to peace building, with respect to issues of, you name it. Because we want the Vatican to change those views, right? And so, there were a lot of issues that were going on during the Obama years, but people were misunderstanding the fact that unless those issues were related to issues that dealt with an international policy or issues that dealt with some way with foreign policy, those were issues that were domestic, and I was not charged to address. But I was charged to address issues that had to do with conflict, that had to do with bridge building among nations, that had to do with differences when, occurred, with prisoners whether they were political prisoners or human rights violations, trafficking in persons. So there's a very specific agenda that all ambassadors to the Holy See have dealt with.
Interesting.
That can likely continue, to be fostered. That does not mean that in the dual role that the Pope has with both respect to the U.S. Church, Catholic Church, and the international dimension, that he will not issue statements condemning X, Y, and Z. He will. But I think, again, it's a matter of how well, the Trump administration will engage the Vatican in terms of those issues that the new Pope will consider important, or whether there will be some kind of stalemate because there won't be enough of a crossover with respect to our foreign policy and the Vatican's foreign policy. I suspect that the Vatican's foreign policy under Pope Leo the 14th is going to be heavily, it will continue to be heavily informed by some of the issues that Pope Francis's papacy was. But in addition to that, these issues of the poor, violence, gun violence, migrants, the diversity of peoples, that's going to be at the forefront, I suspect, of Pope Leo, and we'll see how then the ambassador representing, the Trump administration and, the second section of the Vatican that deals with relations with states, deal with that, in terms of a potential for some kind of constructive dialogue, because we have to think about the fact that a lot depends on that relationship, precisely, for the reasons that we started this conversation. These are two powerful organizations that, when they happen to, work together, can do a lot of good for humanity. And it's not on a religious, yes, of course, the Vatican is inspired by those religious principles, but that work is done not just for Catholic sake; it's done for human sake.
Well, Miguel
how
Diaz,
did that cutting us off at 30 minutes thing work out for you guys?
Former ambassador to the Holy See, glad to spend an extra 30 minutes with you, and Denise Murphy McGraw, co-chair of Catholics Vote Common Good. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome to stick around and listen to Rob and I talk about a few minutes of other political no-goodery that's going on in our country and calling for the common good. But thank you so much for being with us, and
thank you
to all of you who've enjoyed them. Thank you to both of you.
Thank you so much.
There's a little button if you just want to go away. You can just click on that, or you can sit there in the background and watch the rest of the nonsense. Go on. Go on. All right, Rob. How about that? Isn't that great?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're especially if you're a religion nerd like some of us, like this kind of stuff, like how religion works and how it interfaces with governments. The Catholic expression is much more sophisticated than most other versions of this, of religion in America or anywhere in the world, actually.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah, super interesting. And, it's one of those things that brings together both the absolute, normalness of life, like there's pictures of the Pope at a baseball game, like just as normal as can be.
Mm-hmm.
And all of these super complex and sophisticated issues on top of that too.
Yeah.
It's just, it feels closer than it ever has before.
Yeah. And the thing I like about all of that is, from my view of God and human interactions in the world, is, in one sense, I liked how Denise was putting it, saying the 133 Cardinals, I think, were voting, like they picked him.
Yeah. Yes.
Not to say God's not behind it or whatever, but the space between human action and God's doing is, seamless in that kind of view, as opposed to what I guess in other times when popes are picked, it's just sort of like, I don't know, God just did it. We don't know what happens behind the colloquial wall over there, and we just saw smoke come up, and now here's the one that was chosen, and all the rest of it. And I do think, man, there's a lot of things the Catholic Church has to figure out around the world. It's
as does any large multinational organization.
Yeah, it is so complicated. Speaking of that, hey, our old boy Donnie has decided if you tell people that you're taking a bribe, then it's not illegal.
Yeah.
The fact that
it's just transparent, it's open.
That this guy thinks the United States is so broke-ass because of his policies that it can't afford its own plane is so unbelievably insulting to the United States. If you don't know what we're talking about, the nation of Qatar has decided it wants to give Donald Trump a $400 million airplane that he can use for Air Force One, because the one we currently have, of course, not good enough for Donald Trump and his trashy sort of decor sensibilities. But then after he's out of office, it then goes to the presidential library of Donald Trump for his own personal use. And people in this country from across the political spectrum are like, yeah, no. First of all, other nations aren't giving us Air Force One. We can buy our own Air Force One, thank you very kindly. And especially not that nation that is the one that is funding all kinds of activities around the world that the United States, especially the Trump administration, wants to stand opposed to. From Hamas and Iran and jihadist groups. Those are the folks Trump is palling around with and wants an airplane from them. It is so insane.
This is a group of people who have absolutely proven that national security is not an issue for them. They just don't care about it. From Donald Trump storing classified documents in his pants box in his bathroom at his luxury estate in Florida, to war plans being shared in a group text on Signal. This is a group of people who just does not care about national security.
Right.
Accepting a plane from a foreign government to serve as Air Force One, I can't imagine a more unsecure thing than that.
Right. If you have to strip the whole thing down to its nuts and bolts and put it back together, I'm not sure you got a $400 million airplane.
Oh, seriously.
you gotta. It's like you show up to buy the, you're on Facebook Marketplace and you're looking around. And you're like, hey, we should get one of those play things for our kids in the backyard. One of the big climber deals, one of those rainbow ones. And you drive over to pick it up and you're like, oh yeah, I guess I have to take it apart, transport it home, and put it back together. Oof. Maybe the free deal wasn't such a great deal.
Yeah.
if you have to take this plane apart and then secure it with everything it takes for Air Force One, you're not getting $400 million even. Why does this nation want to give Donald Trump this plane?
Yes.
You don't think there's something in the cushions on the couches that you like so much? J.D. Vance? That's a Robb Ryerse J.D. Vance joke. And the fact that they said it, put whole plans together, we're planning to announce it, and everyone around Donnie said, that's a great idea, sir, is so absurd. It is truly hard to wrap your head around. And then these are the people that you think are going to fix the government. It
comes right on the brink of him traveling to the Middle East. He's currently in Saudi Arabia right now. Giving away who knows what.
Giving it all away.
To enrich himself. It's just...
He could be cryptocurrency with his bros over there. He could be picking up other airplanes. Who knows the grift of stuff they're taking and never reporting. I mean, every other person that's ever worked for an administration travels overseas will tell you, like, oh, when you go and you get even a small bottle of wine or a knick-knack, you've got to turn that over to the State Department. They have to log it. You think any of these Trump people are doing any of that?
No.
They are sliding it into their pockets and could not care less. It is so lawless. He is so criminal. And the brazen act of this, Rob, is just utterly, utterly hard to wrap your head around, that he would be so stupid. That his own deep, deep, deep supporters are like, no way. This is an absolute line you do not cross. And he's like, no, we're going to do it.
Yeah, he doesn't care. He
doesn't care. Doesn't care at all. And because you know what he knows? Who's going to enforce the emoluments? Emoluments. Am I saying that right? Emoluments clause. Who?
Right.
Congress? They're going to impeach him?
This is a word.
Can
we just acknowledge the fact that none of us knew this word before Donald Trump was elected president?
The emoluments clause? Yeah.
You didn't know that was in the Constitution? Because we didn't have to. Because we didn't have, since Richard Nixon have we had a crook in the White House.
And this time a literally convicted felon. So the recidiv rate is really high. And we know that if you're elected, when people know you're a felon, you probably think people don't care if I break the law. So if you voted for Donald Trump, you may have had a lot of reasons, but the impact was you told him you don't care that he's a convicted felon.
Yep. Go ahead. Do it. Take a plane from Qatar. Who cares?
And look, the fact that the Defense Department would be like, yeah, that probably works. I don't know how long it takes to build an Air Force One quality airplane with everything it needs to.
That's doing it.
But I'm saying from the moment that they have a shell or an actual airplane, how long it would take to retrofit it so it can be protected from rockets. Like, this thing is not a normal airplane. Right. Communication stuff, the thickening of the walls, the fixing, all the different engines, everything that has to go into it. I don't know how long that retrofit takes, but it's not as if for the next 3.5 years, Donald Trump's going to spend 3.5 years in that plane as Air Force One. Maybe a year, maybe it takes a year and a half. Maybe it takes 2 years.
It's about the rest of his life.
It's about the rest of his life. Of course it is. It's not a gift to the United States of America. It's a gift to the Donald Trump Presidential Foundation. By the way, Donald Trump, a man who in the state of New York years ago was found guilty of grifting off of the foundation that he ran and is forbidden from running a nonprofit. He's such a criminal, he can't run a nonprofit, so he can run a presidential library that is for sure a pipeline straight into his own pocket. Not because he's hired to be the executive director of the Donald Trump Presidential Library and being paid $74,000 a year. Nope. What's yours is mine, and what's mine is mine, and welcome to the Trump world. Meanwhile, telling children. We misspoke, and I apologize so deeply for last week's just sheer arrogance on my behalf. He said the kids could have 5 pencils, and I said he said they could have 1. I am sorry for slandering the man. He says the kids don't need 250 pencils.
Who corrected you on that?
I corrected myself. I just ran into the correct information. I was corrected by facts. I was corrected by the truth. That's who.
No, you didn't get a text from somebody?
No.
Actually,
Nobody.
He said people could have 5. Kids could have 5.
Yeah, you're just such a liar. Do your research. 5 pencils. Kids can get 5 pencils and 1 doll. But I can get a $400 million gift from another country because we're so broke in this country. Yeah. We can't buy our own airplane.
Yeah, what happened to what's the tariff on the plane?
What's the tariff on the plane? I thought America was going to be so rich under Donald Trump. Everyone was going to have everything. We have endless money to spend on the military, and the Air Force One comes out of the Defense Department. Why is there not enough money in the United States to pay for this airplane? Why is your economy going to make us so broke that we have to go and pick up a used plane from overseas?
Doug, if the country of Qatar were to call the number on the Vote Common Good website and offer a Vote Common Good a new bus, would you take it?
Oh, jeez. Yeah, for sure, I'd take it.
Yeah,
take it.
100%.
Yeah, 100%. I'd take it. In fact, Cutter, if you feel like you got stiffed on the airplane you were trying to give, and you want to give us a provost.
We'll take it.
Brad, yeah, we'd take it in a minute. Yeah. But if I became the president of the United States, I would stop doing such things. I can assure you. No, of course I wouldn't take it. I mean, look, this is what other nation is now lining up and saying, hey, what other thing is so emblematic of the presidency that we could provide it? I mean, at so many levels. I could go on and on about this until noon Central Time. It's 10:12 right now. So I've got an hour and 45 minutes I could talk about this.
I'm not sure I have that much time.
Not sure anybody thinks of the few moments I have left in life, I want to spend them listening to that. Everything about somehow America first, we're going to make products here. They're all coming from us. Why do we have to have a Boeing airplane go through another nation, regardless of who the nation is, to be delivered to us? Why do we need that? What is it? What's wrong with just made in America, delivered in America? If Republicans, if they heard any other president saying he might take the presidential podium as a gift from some other nation.
Lectern?
It would be lectern gate over and over again. The country would be living the nightmare that is government politics in the great state of Arkansas. Yeah. I mean, truly, if it was Obama or Biden, people would be losing they would be doing what we're doing right now because it's insane.
Yes. And it is, Doug, if we were to say, okay, you asked, what could another country provide that is emblematic of the presidency? If we had asked this question before this, could another country provide the White House? No. Could another country provide Mount Rushmore? No. Could another country provide Air Force One? No. I mean, we would have been like that. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, there isn't anything. It is fundamentally, at its core, American, United States of America.
I mean, I think China is going to be offering us a new presidential motorcade. I'm sure Romania is working right now on a new Marine One, which is the helicopter. I don't know. There's probably some country, I mean, maybe Saudi Arabia, maybe he's coming home with a whole new fleet of golf carts
I don't know.
for Mar-a-Lago, things to get the president around.
I've heard that Iran wants to provide a whole new a situation room.
Oh yeah,
They've said, hey, we got it. Don't you worry none.
Yeah,
let us just come in and make you a new
North
one. You can
North
go have
Korea is
all your
going to be offering a
conversations
new Resolute desk.
Yeah, Resolute desk. Maybe some missiles. You know, maybe they could sort of gin up some missiles for us. It's just so absurd.
What are we doing?
Like, truly, if we had said in November 3rd, traveling around the country as we did, Donald Trump is going to do a lot of things if he's given the power of the presidency again. Mm-hmm. And one of those is he's going to take an airplane from Qatar and turn it into Air Force One. But the you people have Trump delusionment syndrome or whatever it is. Like, you're just out of your mind. This is like, this guy was sitting around. You know, he was in this very airplane, like in Orlando earlier this year. Do you know about this?
Right.
Yeah.
No. Oh, he's probably looking around going, he probably cracked some joke of like, yeah,
that's exactly what happened.
And then instead of giving it to him right away, they had to take it back to Qatar and put all the listening devices in it before they could give it to him.
So, okay, the thing's already got miles on it, so you're picking up a used one. Fair enough. Sometimes in the used market, you can get a great deal.
Dave Ramsey tells us to do that. When you're going to get a new Air Force One, you don't get one right off the lot, because as soon as you drive it off the lot, it depreciates in value.
Yeah.
So this is very Dave Ramsey of him. I like it.
Yep, because he's really working on saving money for the American people. So he's in the thing, looks around, is like, boy, I'd like to have something as nice as this. Okay, and again, let's just say for a moment, the purpose, I'm going to come in close. The purpose of Air Force One is to move the presidents and the administration and the support people around the country for the purpose of serving the American people. It is not your ballroom. It's not the place where you say, isn't this nice? This is what kills me, Rob. This is at the heart of what, when people say we should get rid of government waste, this is the clear example of government waste. Yeah. That Donald Trump thinks he should really trick out and make more beautiful the airplane that is a command center and is the central transportation vehicle of the president and the administration around the world for the purpose of the United States people. And he's like, we should really have one that's more elegant. Why isn't Doge looking into that? Oh, it's just...
These people. These
people. I mean, it's... And what's crazy is this isn't even the worst of the stuff that he did this week.
That's right.
It's just so insane. It's like all the other insane things, that he's a crazy person who is clearly just bouncing randomly, cutting the tariffs yesterday from 140% on China down to 80%, and then putting on a 90-day stay so that they could get ships coming in with containers on them for Christmas gifts. And then the headline that I posted yesterday from Bloomberg News is, Xi of China played the long game and got everything he wanted out of Trump. Trump is literally negotiating with himself and somehow figuring out how to lose.
That's the art of the deal, Doug. He literally wrote the book on how to make great deals.
He literally had a ghostwriter write the book with his name on it. And it is he is so bad. He is so bad. Like, if you want to use tariffs to negotiate something, first of all, know what you're negotiating. What is it? What is it that you literally want? Do you want the other country to lower the tariffs? Do you want them to stop fentanyl? Do you want us to have more leverage so that we can get a better trade deal separate from...
Jobs
what do you
coming
want?
Back. States. You
I
want
thought you were wanting to
manufacturing.
put manufacturing in the United States. And if you can't articulate it, then don't put them into effect yet.
Yeah.
Oh, it is just another great little meme that I saw yesterday was one of those signs like in a workplace environment, like, 72 days since we've had a workplace injury.
Yes.
One of those signs with a movable number. And this was 0 days since Donald Trump gave in on tariffs. 0 days.
Now he's supposed to sign an executive order, I think today, maybe sometime this week, related to drug prices, and this is one that is going to be real interesting because it crosses political lines. It seems like it sounds from the outside that it's very anti-big pharma, but we'll have to see what the fine print says.
Okay, so here's what it says in the executive order on this note. Donald Trump's big beef is this. You didn't treat us fair. Sucking on his little thumb. We're not being treated like the other kids. So he says, here's his big beef. His big beef is not strictly that pharmaceutical prices are too expensive in the United States.
It's that we pay more than others.
Than other nations pay for the same.
What's going to happen is rather than lowering the prices, the pharmaceutical companies are going to raise the prices for all nations.
In other nations. Like he's saying to them in the executive order, here's what you're going to do. And he has no power to do any of this. But you're going to right size the cost that the United States pays in comparison to other nations. So if you're a pharmaceutical company, you're like, I think the president just told us we have to raise prices internationally.
Right.
He didn't say lower drug prices in the executive order. What they stood at the podium and said is not what's on the piece of paper that's going to become an executive order with impact.
Yeah, it's a thing called most favored nation status,
which he uses in that.
Yes, which is an interesting thing because it's used in all sorts of different situations. I used to work at a textbook company where some states had most favored nation laws, so that if we sold a textbook in one state for a price, like we had to sell the textbook at the lowest price in those states. Basically, it's this idea of like nobody can get a better deal than we can.
Yeah. It shouldn't you shouldn't be making, if you're going to operate in the public sphere, you can't be giving certain deals some places and not the same deals to other places like you can in private industry. And Donald Trump wants that for pharmaceutical bill. But he's not saying what the punishment's going to be because he doesn't have any legislative power to put anything in place. So here's what's going to happen. Pharmaceutical companies are going to come in and say, "Okay, Mr. President, yeah, that's great. We're going to get working on this right away." And he's going to say, "Great, let's go out and have a press conference and announce it." And they're going to stand out and they're going to be in the office or whatever and they're going to say a thing. And then they won't do a damn thing about it.
Yeah.
Now, when it was Biden actually made it so that the price that Medicare and Medicaid pays for prescriptions got lower. Used the force of Congress to do it. With an executive order, passed a law. Donald Trump will not pass a law, partly because this House of Representatives is not going to pass that law.
Feckless. Yes. Yeah.
They're going to make an announcement and then do nothing about it. And for the performative act that is this presidency, that's all that matters.
Yep.
And then he's going to go around like a person detached from reality, saying things like, eggs are 94% cheaper than they were the day I was elected, and gas is $1.98. I saw somebody post something the other day where they said, please, every Trump supporter, if I could just catch a quick picture of egg prices and gas prices where you live, just go ahead and post them here. I'd love to see it. Because the man just says things that are just not true. They're the opposite of truth. They're lies. They're wrong. They're intended to deceive. That's what he's going to do on this. He will just say, oh, your Viagra used to cost you this much, and now it's going to cost you this much, because it's the only drug he can think about.
It's actually going up.
And you're like, it's more. And then somebody, you know, in what's the country with the penguins that he put the tariffs on? He's going to be trying to buy some, you know, pharmaceutical drug, and it's going to be
country where no one lives, but there are tariffs.
There's tariffs on them. Oh, it's just such foolishness, and you know, we laugh because what else can you do? Also laugh because it's just so stupid. It's just so, and yet, you know, that old Saturday Night Live skit. We have to literally say, and somehow, the side of the common good lost to this guy. I mean, God love us all.
At least we got a cool pope.
Yeah, for now. Let's make sure.
We'll see.
Let's make sure he holds up. Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you, of all the religious and political leaders that have very little impact on my life as a
Pope is near the top.
I mean, Dalai Lama too. Just love him. Love him. I've met him. Do you know I met the Dalai Lama?
No.
Yeah, I was at an event with the Dalai Lama. I spoke with Desmond Tutu, and there's an event with the Dalai Lama and stuff in Seattle.
That's fun.
Yeah, it was before social media, and I also don't think it was before social media. It was, but I was just like, okay, like there's a way you can make yourself.
Now, do you remember
really
the time
petty, and that's when you are trying to get some kind of bump from being around somebody way more famous, and I'm like, I want nothing to do with that. I'm just going to have an experience with the Dalai Lama, which was lovely, a lovely old man. Wore sandals. I loved it. Toes out.
Do you remember the time that we were in I think it was a monastery that housed the Franciscan Action Network in Washington, D.C.
College.
And they had one of those cardboard cutouts of Pope Francis, and you and I put our arms around it, and there was something about the angle at which you took that picture. It looked like we were actually with Pope Francis. You posted that online, and people were freaking out.
Yes.
They had no idea it was a cardboard cutout. They thought you and I were with Pope Francis. It was hilarious.
So funny. So funny. And when I did post my picture with Hillary Clinton, people literally thought it was a cardboard cutout. Somehow the Pope looked alive and Hillary looked flat. But I was very impressed by that little picture. All right. I just can't talk about this anymore. I'm so sad. Yeah. What else did Trump do that was horrible? Anything we need to mention, or can we just move on? Can we just move on? Hey, there is some common good stuff happening. If you're still watching this, you are a super booster. Yeah. We're going to be out in Saratoga, California, Silicon Valley area by San Jose, Saturday for an event. So if you're out in that area, go to votecommongood.com. You'll see the information there. Come join us at a little event that we're doing. And then it looks like we're going to be June 14th and 15th in Pennsylvania, Hershey, Pennsylvania area, and doing an event with some people you met here on the podcast, the Leaving MAGA organization. Nice. We're going to be doing some things there. So might be a little...
When you are on votecommongood.com, check out the candidates for common good, because we have 2 sections of candidates for common good on votecommongood.com. One for 2025, and one for 2026. Really? They're already lining up. There are elections happening this year, and we've got candidates for common good. There are elections happening in 2026, and we've got candidates for common good. And so check them out. I think we're working on. We're going to have a special guest. There is a candidate in the state of Texas running for Congress for the seat that had been held by Sheila Jackson Lee in the Houston area, who then her replacement also passed away while he was in office, and so now rather than appoint someone new, they're just going to have an election for it, and we're going to have one of those candidates.
When is that election? Do you know?
It's election day in November. There's not a primary. It's just an open free for all, and then if nobody gets 50%, it'll go to a runoff. But we're gonna have one of the candidates on and have a conversation with her. She's
Wonderful.
Fantastic.
So there is no one in that seat currently representing the people of that district. They're
That's
unrepresented.
correct.
Do they have to pay? Do they have to pay taxes?
Oh, I mean the people of Washington D.C. have to, don't they?
Yeah. Well,
I mean, I've got Tom Cotton as my senator, and I have to pay taxes.
Well, he represents you.
No, he lives in Virginia. He doesn't
He lives in Virginia. Well, he doesn't have to live there to represent you. Let's put it that
His parents live in Arkansas.
Tom Cotton. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for being a part of this. Thanks for caring about the Pope. Thanks for caring about the common good. Thanks for caring about the Pope and vote common good. All right. We'll see you later. Hey, next week, by the way, I don't know how we're doing this because there's some travel going on. Podcast live stream next week might be later in the week. All right.
Might be from the road holding our phones.
Could be hilarious.
That'd be
Put
awesome.
little mics on and did it from the front of it. We should totally think about that while driving the RV.
Well, yeah. From
Mount
the
the
front
camera.
of Good Force One. Yeah.
American made, America purchased, American owned.
But Cutter, we're open to a new one.
Or any nation, or any person.
Sure. Especially one that's tricked up.
Tricked up? Tricked out? Okay.
Hey, Peggy,
hey,
no.
Hey, Rob, did your interview with Shane post yet?
Well, Peggy, I don't know how you know that I did an interview with Shane. Did I mention it here? I don't know. But
I thought you did. I thought you said something about being on his podcast. Is that what this is?
Yeah. No, I don't think it's posted yet. Though Shane did send me a picture right before him getting arrested. He was.
You did mention that last week.
I did.
Yeah.
He's holding up a copy of.
It's a banned book, and so he was arrested for holding up the book.
That's right. You get your copy, The Gospel According to Donald Trump.
With all the parts of the gospel that would be redacted if Donald Trump doesn't agree with, and it's a lot.
A lot.
It's a great show.
All right. Shameless plug over.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We'll see y'all later. Bye.